You're listening to the Flourish Mindset, where we talk to entrepreneurs and discover their successes, their failures, and their secrets to winning at business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Flourish Mindset. I'm your host, Hannah Bettenhausen, and with us today we have Sarah West, owner and founder of Light Coaching and Consulting, an agency that offers fractional CFO services, accounting services, as well as business coaching and training.
Yeah.
And most recently, co-owner
Yes.
of the Dale Carnegie in North Dakota and Northwest Minnesota. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit. I have so many questions, but what does fractional CFO mean?
A fractional CFO. So basically part-time CFO. A lot of businesses have a need or a desire to have that high-level expert in their organization, but not necessarily big enough or have a need for that all of the time. So with fractional CFO, you can just get X number of hours per month or per week, and then we help you with that. So you can have that high level strategic thinking in your organization without the high salary that a CFO would demand.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I know that you have roughly 20 years in the finance industry, and I know you've worked as a CFO in the past. Why start your own accounting and consulting services as opposed to staying where you were?
Yeah, so a couple things kind of prefaced the let's make a decision here. One was I was the CFO at a real estate development company and looking for the next generation and what that could look like for me in that part of that particular organization was a trigger of like, what do I want to do for the next 10 years of my life? If I'm going to commit to this, I need to be all in kind of thing. And that's just kind of my personality to be over committed to things. So I explored that. What would that look like? I explored if I were to go somewhere else in a different organization, what would that look like? And had some really intentional conversations there. And then also explored this other thing, like if I have a gift and, if I were to utilize that through other places, what would that look like? And knowing that there's a lot of businesses that don't have people in their organization who know what I know or see it the way that I see it. And there's value to that. There's value to rather than saying it just is what it is, saying, but what if it could be different? And most people who are trained to be accountants and finance people don't always have that mindset.
Right. It's a lot of black and white.
It's a lot of black and white, yeah. So rather than seeing it as black and white, at the end of the day, the whole world is just shades of gray.
Right.
And it really just putting the power back into the entrepreneurs or the business owners or the business leaders' hands. And it's just a decision. So if you decide this is the risk and the upsides. And if you decide this is the risk and the upsides. And just letting those people and empowering them to choose, but having and gathering all the information versus looking at it as, I don't want to go down that path because it's too black or it's too white, because the shade of gray there is based on my tolerance, not something I would do. Well, it's not really my decision if all the risk lies on if it's an IRS thing, if it's a tax thing, the risk lies on the taxpayer. Right. So it's my job to educate them so that they can take their risk. So that's kind of how we approach it a little bit differently, is really thinking about what is your risk tolerance and how can we make it be successful? Because some people will be like, I want to start this business or do this thing and I'll leverage it. And some people just aren't as comfortable with leveraging at 80% or 90% or whatever the bank will allow. So whether it's a taxation situation or a financing situation or just entering into a business model, everybody's risk tolerances are different. So we don't really make decisions for clients. We advise based on what we know their ability is.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of times entrepreneurs in particular live in that gray area. They love, finding the loopholes and finding their way around stuff. So unless they have the money to afford a CFO who can be very creative in their thinking or help them navigate that, like having that service offered to them and given the options where no one else does that, you're right. It's so great, because before it was like you turn in your work or your expenses and then you answer questions and that was it. So I love that you guys can offer that for people who can't afford that CFO.
Yeah.
So you started in 2019.
Yes.
You've grown exponentially since then.
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute that to?
So I think that one is we found the right or something that people wanted. So I get to speak to a 9th grade class tomorrow on business entrepreneurship and thinking about, and I did this in some of my webinars too, is making sure whatever it is you're selling, like people want it.
Right.
Like if I could, they tease about, I got a degree in underwater basket weaving, right? Don't pursue a business that there is no market for.
Right.
Like that is going to be, you can, again, it's just a choice. You have to have a high risk tolerance to pursue a business that nobody has a demand for at this point, especially if you're creating demand, like a brand new idea. Like kudos to you for doing that. I don't have that high of a risk tolerance to do that. We tried to do that. It didn't work out great. So if we talk about failures, we can go down that path. But there's just a demand for our services, for our creative thinking, for the way that we do business. We're not like a subcontractor or something that's completely separate. We model our interaction with clients as a partnership. So we're walking alongside you for a long term. We don't usually take on gigs that are just like, hey, I have this scope of work for this short period of time and let's do that. We don't usually do that. We will occasionally if we have a little bit of bandwidth, but it's really about that partnership. And in that case, it's really hard to lose clients. And so with clients, and then they have a great experience, so they tell their friends. And although we are present on social media, that's more to establish our brand, to attract people, to attract valuable people as employees, not necessarily clients. So we're not like, hey, we have more, without soliciting for a business, we have more people reaching out to us than we can actually handle.
That's great.
It's a great problem to have, right? And then also like the one struggle with that is controlling the growth. Because if I wanted to have, so I, went from 0 to now we have 8 team members. If I wanted to have 20 and serve 100 clients, technically I could. Like I could go find all those clients to support that in like a financial rhythm of the business. But I just don't want to lose the culture and the feel of that. And granted, you can still do that and grow that fast with being really intentional in your hiring practices, making sure they align core value-wise and all of those things, and intelligence in the way they treat the client and the customer. But it's just not as easy. So because I want that client experience to be a certain level, I've just chosen to say no, or not to pursue more business.
I love that. I think a lot of times when you see the opportunity for more business, people just dive right in and take it all and then find out how much they can push their staff and then find where they need more people, and then they just hire quickly out of need. And I think it's so important to, when you're hiring, even if you're in need, be so careful about who you hire and make sure that they not only align with your core values, but also with your mission and their work ethic as well. So I love that you have intentionally chosen to value your clients' output or what the clients receive and that customer service level. I think that's so great that you do that. But at the same time, you have been growing. So it's obviously you've found the right balance between the two.
For now, right? For now. I always, I'm an accountant by trade, so it's my nature to view situations with risk, right? Versus a typical entrepreneur who's like, go, 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 right? So when I say for now, or I caveat any of our successes, it's not to diminish what we've done, but also to let's not be overzealous here. And one, it's not us, it's a higher power. And, it's just great people. Like even thinking of my first client was the Brandenburg crew.
Right.
And just having people who believed in me surround me throughout this and continue to surround me throughout this is a huge attributor to our success.
Well, I know that when we hired you back in the day, I remember it was fresh, but you just poured all in, and you could tell that you cared about like our successes, and you were cheering us on, not just looking for the services aspect of it. So it makes a big difference when you feel like your financial services, your accountant actually cares about whether or not you succeed.
Right. Yes.
Instead of collecting a bill at the end of the
month. Yes, exactly.
So you have to have so many opportunities coming your way, or maybe not even coming your way, but in front of you, because you talk with so many entrepreneurs on a regular basis. I know you're involved in a few different things. But how do you balance the weight of the risk versus the opportunity? Do you have like a calculation you do on yourself for yourself, or where do you find that difference? Because obviously most people are not daredevils. Most of us have pretty low risk tolerance. I have found that entrepreneurs have a higher risk tolerance than most people. But even that, like a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders don't have a lot of high risk. So where do you find that balance?
I think the thing that has shifted my tolerance for risk was, it was 6 years ago. So it was in 2016, almost losing my daughter and my nieces in an accident. And from that moment on, I just look at life through a different lens. And before that, it was Sarah's going to be a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, and she's going to rise in her career, do all these things. And after that, I still am ambitious, but it just looks different, or the why probably looks different. Before, it was about proving myself to the world. I'm dyslexic, so I still got A's and B's in school, but I still struggled. Right. When you don't know how to read, it's kind of, school can be hard. Yeah. But I also proven that you don't need to, not that you shouldn't know how to read, but like you can have those things and still get around it. Like I have more letters behind my name than in my name. Good thing I have a short name, because I could get my master's. I could pass all these exams and do all these things despite that. So part of that CFO Fortune 500 company was not for the ends. It was for the means, like to just prove to the world that I can do it.
Right.
And after the accident, it really shifted my mindset to why. Like why was that the goal? Not that couldn't be a thing in the future when my kids are grown, but it was. Now it's more about helping others and helping other people's dreams come true. But how this affects the risk tolerance is, I can do all these things in business and it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because what matters is the little people at home and my husband and my sisters and my family. That's all that matters. And no matter how much money I make or don't make, like they're just going to be there. Like I could take a huge risk and fail and file bankruptcy and not have any money left. And guess what? Somebody's going to take me in. Right. It's not going to be fun, but who the hell cares? Because I'm going to have a roof over my head. I got enough people around me who are forgiving enough. And as long as I don't screw up those relationships, right, I'm going to be fine. So that's really where that risk tolerance shifted, in that, at the end of the day, all that stuff, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't really matter.
Right. It's not like what you're taking with you, and it's not the legacy you're leaving behind. I mean,
yeah,
it's money that you're leaving behind, but there's so much more when it comes to your family and and your friends.
Yeah, and you can look at stats, and there's money doesn't buy happiness. Like there's literal data that shows that some of the happiest people in the world are poor in the poverty category. It makes it easier. And I think at this time, granted, we've had hyperinflation, so I don't know what the number is now, but a few years back, they said the law of diminishing returns is when you have more, but you get less of the return. Right. So the law of diminishing returns in the study said that $80,000 a year was the salary where you're the most happiest. Everything after that, you don't get more happy per dollar of annual income. After that 80,000, I'm sure it's a little bit higher now with inflation and all the things that have gone on. But once you get to that point, it's just like, okay, I'm comfortable. I can make the choices that I want to make for my family, and all the rest of it. Yeah, it can be or doesn't have to be.
I love that. I think that a lot of times people are so worried about, oh, how will I not provide for my family anymore?
Yeah.
Or, how will people look at me if I fail? Because now I'm seen as a failure. How am I going to start something else?
Mm-hmm.
But when it really comes down to it, it's doing what you're passionate about so that you can be with the people you're passionate about too, right?
Yeah.
So you've taken all these big risks. They've paid off for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little bit about failure.
Uh-huh.
So tell me a little bit about maybe one of the risks that didn't pan out.
Didn't work out. So now we have four businesses. So the one that didn't work, and is kind of just, it's not that it didn't work, it's the timing's not right. And in the Bible it talks about that a lot too. It's not like, it's the timing has to be right to go to market in this. So fractional CFO works because everybody is familiar with financial services, right? That works. Dale Carnegie works. People are familiar with the name. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then the light workforce solutions that we have, that works too. People understand, like, I pay you and I get employees. It works. Right. It's pretty easy concept. Now that when I say those who have a higher risk tolerance than me can create something from scratch and design a market, is we tried to do that with core counts. We designed a technology that helps pulse the culture in the organization. And why I say the timing was wrong. So the tool itself was super helpful. We still use it in our organization, as well as a few others. The tool itself does what we say it's going to do. Right. The issue is when we went to market, so we started core counts in 2020. COVID.
Okay, during the middle of COVID.
Yeah. So by the end of it probably took about a year for the technology to be ready to go to market.
Okay.
Before that, it was all like, what does it look like? How does it feel? And then testing it out kind of thing.
Right.
So when we were ready to go to market in early 2021, COVID was still going on. Right. There was still the aftermath. And if you remember any of the articles and stuff, there's the Great Resignation and all these things that were going on. And it was more about, and now we have this workforce, they haven't called it a crisis, but it kind of is.
Right.
We just can't find people.
Employees.
Yeah. And I want to caveat that with that people are like, oh, it's because of COVID. And I want people to understand that, no, we actually knew this was coming 8 to 10 years ago because it's an age demographic thing. It's not a COVID thing. It was accelerated because of COVID, because those who were at the tail end of their career decided, I'm not going to deal with this shit, and left a little early.
Right.
Yeah.
We knew that they were getting ready to retire.
And
just expedited.
Yes, and expedited it. Yes, for sure. So when thinking about that, so when we were going to market, and this is a culture tool, and lots of business owners or CEOs or anybody, if I ask you about a culture, who does that fall on?
It falls on the leadership team.
As far as execution.
Probably HR.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, 100%. It is actually everybody's responsibility, starting with the leadership team on driving culture, right? But as far as like actually implementing XYZ plan to drive our culture to the way that we want it to be, guess what, HR? That's on you.
Right. But people don't necessarily have warm and fuzzies about HR.
No. And HR is like we all, so I'm in finance and you're in operations. Like we've all felt the strain of the last 2 years of going from business as usual pre-COVID to now the information is changing daily on what we need to do. So we've gone into firefighter mode, and now we can finally start going back into planning mode and like being intentional with things. So this might be something that we can revitalize here in the next couple of years. And we have a plan with that too. But when we went to market, HR was like, okay, so I need to ask my employees for feedback. I will be getting data that says I'm good at these things, but nobody pays attention to that, right? You get your kid's report card and you don't say, oh yeah, good job. You got 6 A's and 1 D. We don't talk about the A's.
All we talk about is, look at that 1 D.
Yes.
Why did you do that? What's wrong with you?
Yes, exactly. And HR is like, no, thank you. I have enough to do.
Right.
I now have to replace all this workforce and or read all these HR laws or know whether we can take our masks off or not, or whether we should vaccinate everybody on. And those were huge organizational decisions that were pushed onto HR. And the workforce thing isn't solved yet either. So they still have that. They're still tired from that. So when we were going to market, introducing a new thing that would then point out some of the areas of opportunity, as we would call them, but they would be like, no, not only do I not have time to look at that data, I do not have time to fix it.
Right.
So, and why would I ask my employees what they're feeling or doing if I don't have time to fix it?
Well, I think there's also this fear from the leadership side of it. You know, why am I pointing out an opportunity or giving them an opportunity to complain? And I think that there's a healthy way to roll out something like that, because you don't give them an opportunity to complain. You give them an opportunity to point out issues, and then you give them the opportunity to fix those issues, because it shouldn't be just leadership fixing issues.
Right.
We're a culture, we're a team, and I think we all have an opportunity, as long as leadership is open and communicating and willing to take the ego or pride hit, because that's really what's going to happen first. But I think a lot of leaders too are just too terrified to open themselves up to that kind of potential risk, when really, if you're open to it and you're willing to fix the things, you might have a little less turnover and a little less resignation too.
Exactly. So one of our partners who is the visionary. He had the idea. He's a maverick on the PI. If you're familiar with predictive index, it's interesting to work with a maverick, especially when you're an accountant type. But he challenged us into thinking of now is the best time to come at it, because we could be so helpful, and then we just haven't been able to solidify our message in that now is actually the best time.
Right.
Because this retention should be everybody's focus, because people are like, I feel like when I scroll LinkedIn, that's all I'm seeing is new job. So-and-so got a new job, right? And the best way to keep your people is to figure out what they want, and then you don't have to give it to them. You just have to communicate, whether if I want a 4-day work week and I want Fridays off or Mondays off or something like that. One, I have to be aware of that to be able to answer why that can work or why that can't work. But if I'm not even aware, because I'm not asking them, because I'm not talking to them, then you don't even have an opportunity to save them and retain them.
So I think I've kind of said it a little bit. I think it can be a dangerous tool.
Yeah.
How does, and I know you're not really pursuing at this moment, but how does Core Counts help with the feedback on what can be improved? I think so often it's seen as a tool to complain, but not a tool to improve.
Yeah.
So how does Core Counts help with bringing back, like, all right, we've talked to the staff, or we've done this, we've laid this out. Now we're giving them the opportunity to find the answers and improve things too. Like, how do you find balance between it?
Yeah. So step one would be awareness. So gaining the information. And then step two would be communicating that information, which we can help with now. And then phase two of Core Counts would be like, okay, how do we really fix this problem? Because depending on what it was that was identified, there's a roadmap to move forward in that piece. So say that supervisor relationships was your lowest scoring thing. So that's not just senior leadership. That's probably a leadership organizational wide. Now, a very common thing that we do in organizations, and we're like, you're the top salesperson. I'm going to promote you to sales manager. I'm not going to give you any tools that you need to lead people and manage, but you know how to sell, so it should be fine, right? And that's not true.
Okay, so they're not great leaders because they haven't never been trained. They don't know how to do it. Yeah. On top of that, you're taking away your top salesperson. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, why did my sales numbers go down?
Right.
You took away your salesperson.
Yes, exactly.
It's bad.
Yes, it is. And also creating an awareness in those salespeople too, that if they have that drive to be a leader, a manager one day, one, what does that look like organizational to have that top sales? So who are you training up, mentoring, whatever you want to call that, informally to replace those sales so that you can take that manager role, because once you're a manager, you're less focused on your individual goals and more on the team. And
if you're a good leader.
Yeah, if you're a good leader. Thank you. And you just don't have the time. Like, the only thing that we have in this world that isn't abundant is time. It's the same 24 hours for all human beings in every day. So whether you are a world leader or somebody who's providing service at a fast food restaurant, same 24 hours.
Right.
Same. So what you do with that 24 hours is up to you. So it's an opportunity, but it's also the only lid we have as well. So we have to choose. We were raised, or I was raised for sure, in the you can do anything.
Right. And
mentality.
So then you try to do
everything.
Yeah.
Yes. Where I can be the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. Will my family love me? Maybe not. Maybe not, because that's going to take a lot of time away from them. And not saying you can't do those things and balance those things, but any leader that's been seasoned at all has that understanding that it's a give and take. Like that thing we talked about as balance, it doesn't actually exist.
Right.
It's just trying to figure out what is important to you and then finding a way to supplement, whether for some people, the living life part, like traveling and doing those things, is more important to them than the work. Like, I just really love my work. So when people are like, what do you do for fun? I'm like thinking, I actually get so much joy from taking complex stuff and making it easy. So I spend time in spreadsheets. To get juiced up, I just pull out a spreadsheet and make something complicated simple.
I love that. I think so many times working hard or diving into work, even when you don't need to be, people are like shaming it now. Mm-hmm. And if you're just working hard to make the dollar, then it probably isn't right for you. Mm-hmm. But if you're just doing something that you're passionate about, why is that not okay?
Right.
And spend the time that you have, the limited time you have, doing the things you're passionate about. So, as long as you're taking care of your family and you're spending the time that you need with your family and you need for yourself internally, but that they need too, then do what makes you happy. If it's, no one would shame you if you're out hiking and you could do both, but whatever is you're passionate about.
Yeah. You don't judge me. I won't judge you. That'll be great. It's perfect.
I think that's partly, the more secure you come in business and the older you get too, you just stop caring so much about what everyone else is judging, and you just do what matters most.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, where core counts is now. I love that you not only identified that it's not working right now, but you identified why it's not working right now, and then you were able to put that right now tagline on there. And I think a lot of times people don't want to let go of something because they don't want to be labeled a failure. Yeah. But also they give up too easily. Oh, it didn't work, so it's never going to work. As opposed to saying, okay, it didn't work, but why? Okay, it's a timing issue. We can reevaluate this in 2 years. And I love that you guys haven't just dropped it and given up, but you're willing to reevaluate and put it on the back burner or whatever needs to happen. Yeah. With that, you've gotten involved with Dale Carnegie lately. I love it because a lot of times people think to be an entrepreneur or an owner, you either have to have a ton of money or you have to start something from the ground up. But I think a lot of it has to do with keeping your eyes open to opportunity. So tell me a little bit how you became one of the co-owners of Dale Carnegie. Yeah. So to squash the fallacy that you have to have a ton of money to start a business is not true. So when I started Light, I'm actually embarrassed because I'm a finance person of how much money we had in the bank. When I started, I just had a conversation with my husband about, I'm not going to bring in any money for at least 3 months. So we just kind of set it up as, FYI, you're supporting the family for at least 90 days, but I'm pretty sure this is going to work. At the end of the day, after 90 days, if I hadn't sold anything, I could have gotten a job. It can be as little as that, and oh darn, I don't get to have
I don't get to spend a bunch of money on my nieces and nephews for their birthdays for this year or whatever it is, you know. So you don't have to, especially if it's a service-based business where you don't have a lot of input costs, like if you don't have inventory or space, like a location, and where you don't need a lot of money to put in, just do it. You can do it without much. When it comes to Dale Carnegie, so that was already an existing business. It's been in this market for over 25 years. And the people who owned it before, from the onset, have done a really good job of building the brand, understanding the value, all of that stuff. So when the opportunity presented itself, how the opportunity came into existence is Bethany, the prior owner, was a client of mine on the Fractional CFO world.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So as she went along her journey, some things happened in her life to shift her focus from the business to her family. And so when the opportunity came to, at first it was just an opportunity to help. And I'm an Enneagram type 2, the helper. So I have a problem. My team's like, can you just tone it down a little bit we don't have to save everybody. We don't have to help the entire world. But so at first it came with an opportunity to help with Core Counts shift. Melissa, who's the main employee at Core Counts, had some time on her hands in the future. She would shame me for saying time on her hands, because no matter how much work we would do, we're going to fill up our time, right? So it's all about prioritizing. Right. So that was in May that we had that conversation of what does it look like to get Melissa certified so she can help backfill Bethany as she shifts her focus. Right. And then we didn't talk for like 6 weeks. And then when we talked again in July, she said, you know what, it's kind of shifted even more. And I really just need to sell the business. Would you guys be interested? And my first instinct was, yes, I do your financials, so I know you're successful. So yes. But 2, I can't do it without Melissa. And Melissa can't do it without me. So then Melissa and I had a conversation about what does this partnership look like. I don't have the time dedicated to run another company. But because I took the risk 3 years earlier, I now have a little bit of financial ability to do this buyout. So if you're buying an existing business, you're going to write a check, right? Or finance and write a check or whatever it looks like. You can't just start that from scratch without any input when you're buying an existing business, unless you're buying a failing business, but we could talk about that. So if you are thinking about buying a failing business, give me a call too, because I have some life lessons there as well. I get to learn vicariously through my clients, so I have so many lessons. It's so great. So with that, it was just Melissa went through the course in July, and going into it, it was kind of like I don't know. And Melissa, this is you, because I don't have bandwidth to do it. So it's your decision. And then she went through the course and she absolutely loved it. It's just the way that it transforms you in just a short period of time. She went through the 3-day intensive. So there's also an 8-week program where it's 8 afternoons, 1 afternoon a week for 8 weeks. And then she went through the 3-day intensive. So it was intense. But she came out of there just feeling like a new person. And she's done so much work in the last 2 years. Like you literally can see the transformation, not just in her hair, because she likes to switch up her hair quite a bit, but also like in her ability to light up a room. And she's always had that natural ability. Now it's just accentuated, and she can do it with more intentionality and stuff. So she's doing phenomenal. So it was that. And then she prayed a very specific prayer, and God showed up. And he showed up in abundance. So it was about seeing 5 butterflies. Let me see. I haven't seen a butterfly in a while. Let me see 5 butterflies before the meeting on Monday with Bethany. And so then she saw them all weekend. Bethany walks in, has a butterfly on her computer. So our legal business name is Monarch Consulting. So there's God's fingers have been on this for sure. And yeah, Bethany shared some stories too about why the butterfly and why that means. And we didn't even know this at the time, but the Dale Carnegie icon is a DC, but it's a butterfly. Yep. Yes. So it's just so fun when all that stuff comes together. But as far as like fear of jumping into something like that, Melissa's an Enneagram 6, which is the loyal skeptic. So worry is a big thing for the loyal skeptic. Yeah. And one thing that we talk through is like, okay, worst case scenario. If we enter into this partnership, what is the worst thing that can happen? Neither of us are gonna die. Our kids aren't gonna die. Right. So we're okay with that. We could lose our friendship, because that can happen in partnerships. Yeah. So that could be a worst case scenario. So let's talk through like how do we prevent that from happening, and think about that. Really being open in our dialogue. And although it can be uncomfortable at times when she calls me out or I call her out, it's uncomfortable, but it's what's going to save our friendship versus like just shoving it down and not talking about it.
True friendship allows for uncomfortableness.
Yes.
If everything's comfortable and happy, then it's not a true friend.
Right. Yeah. Then it's surface, right?
Right.
Not deep. So that, and then if we totally script the business and we make no money, then worst case scenario there is filing for bankruptcy, right? So and I'm walking somebody through that right now. And because the current law structure allows for bankruptcy, that actually probably is a big reason why we can have people who are entrepreneurs, because at the end of the day, you don't go to jail unless you like are committing fraud or doing those things. Right. But if it's just, I tried and I financially failed, there's an out for you. Right. And not that we don't want to go in thinking that that's our plan.
I'll fail, I'll walk away, I'll get fine. I'll be fine at the end of the day.
Right. But if you are like making all the right choices and putting forth the effort and not living this lavish life because you're cranking up all this debt, if you're really giving it and you end up having to choose that or choosing that, that's okay.
Right.
And again, kids aren't going to die. They can't take your house in bankruptcy, so you got that. Or your first house, maybe if it's lavish, they can, but they can't. They can't make you homeless. And yeah, they can't take, and guess what? You can go get a job.
Right.
You can go get a job almost anywhere if you're willing to show up. So.
What? There's excess jobs right now?
I know, right? So the risk is like, okay, it's a risk. Sure. We don't want to go down that path. Now that we've acknowledged what it is, it loses its power. So worst case scenario is we lose our friendship. We're gonna do things every day that hopefully will not allow that to happen. And second, financially would be to file for bankruptcy. And we know what that exposure is. And we're going to also do things every day to prevent that from happening. And now that we know those things, they lose their power. We can just go be successful.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about stuff. If someone is contemplating taking a little bit of risk, or if someone is really looking at starting a business or buying into a business, are there any tools that you would suggest that they use, any books that they should be reading, any podcasts they should be listening to? What should they be doing to prepare?
So one thing that I've done over my career, like pre-owning a business, is I've read a lot. And being dyslexic, reading is not my favorite thing. So I take it in through Audible. So I listen to the book. So I have lived a portion of my life out about 45 miles. So I have that commute time where I can digest books, and it not only helps my thinking in the moment, but it also helps my intellect, so my ability to communicate verbally at a higher level. So I noticed when we first moved from Ulen back into town for a short period of time, or for a few years, I wasn't listening to books, and I noticed my language drop. So I'm like, oh, what are those big words again that I can use? So the first book that I ever read, because I didn't read, because I'm not a reader, because I can't read, was The Traveler's Gift by Andy Anders. Okay. So Jeff Shipley, for some reason, I think he gave it to Danielle. Danielle gave it to me, and why that book mattered. So that's a really fun read because it's written in fable form. So, or not a fable, but like it's fiction.
Yep,
it's a story. It's a story, and it's a good story. And this person travels through time and meets these exceptional leaders and gets these 7 life lessons that are super great. So I told Drew I need to put together the top 10 book list, the Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah. In November here, I'm doing the 30 days of Dale. So every day, because there's 30 principles, every day I do a little less than 5-minute spiel on the principle of the day. That's super, it's like good human stuff, but if you're not doing those things in business, you're going to have a tough time.
Right.
So I know like some people, it was self-help before self-help was cool because it was written in 1936. Yes. But that one for sure. If you are a leader, Managing Transitions by William Bridges, must read. If you are an entrepreneur or you're just a human that works, Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable. That's a required read at Light. And why that is we have one of our core values is trust that anything is possible, because we are that gray. We're like, we're plain and gray and we're just going to do that. Right. And when you go through school, so you in our life we have this childhood period 0 to, let's just say 5, where besides behaviorally, like creativity, you can be creative in all the things. Like it's so fun to watch our 4-year-old play and like just shut off the TV and he's just making stuff up, right? And you're like,
and they're achieving the impossible with like learning how to walk and all those things. Like physically that shouldn't be possible, and yet they do it.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And they keep trying and doing the things, and they don't get discouraged. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the school systems and how that works, but then we send them to school, and because of the way we do it, we take away some of that creativity. Like 1 + 1 is 2. Yes, it is. Yep. But what if it's not? And you know what I mean? Like, and that if a kindergartner said no, what if it's not, or whatever grade they teach 1 + 1 = 2. And that would be like, the teacher would be like, whoa, I don't know what to do with this, right? Because it is, right? Right. So we teach them not to question those things. Right. And then when we get them in the workforce, we're like, why don't you have any critical thinking skills? Well, that would be why. Right. I don't know why I'm off on this tangent, but
to like work for the system.
Yes. So. Yes. And that's okay.
So everything is figure outable.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other books that you think are a must, or tools? Like, is there any kind of like tools that you use in your business or apps that you use in your business consistently that you think are really important to have?
Yeah. So if you're in professional services, finding your utilization. So how frequent or how much time of your day is being spent on client focus versus other things. So we use Clockify for that. I use Outlook for my to-do list, all of the things. I hate to even say what tool because on that front, because like everybody has their different pet peeves. Like some people get anxiety when they have unread emails.
I do.
Yeah.
I hate having unread emails.
Well, my 25, well, I guess I have my, off count that I give to all the stores that also is connected. I'd have like 25,000 unread emails. And it's more like, for me, it's more of a management of those. So what I do for email specifically, the death of email, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that we need to figure out how to do better. What I do is I'm looking at it periodically throughout the day for trying to identify what's urgent, and occasionally I do miss like urgent important. So when you and I were hanging out regularly, you had that the 4 quadrants, right?
Yes.
That is a tool. So whether you're doing it physically or mentally with urgent, important, not urgent.
Yep. Urgent, not important.
Right.
Not urgent, not important.
Right. Yeah. So I use that in my email. So not urgent, not important, delete.
Right.
Urgent, but not important. What do you do with that?
That goes off to your assistant.
Okay. Yeah. Delegate. That's the D. And then important, not urgent is delay. So do later, and then urgent, important would be due. So Tanya Stendy taught me those four Ds, and I use that for my email. So if it's a due or a delegate, the delegate I just try to push off right away. And if it's a due, I try to figure out where in my day can I tackle this and how much time will it actually take.
Right. And can you delegate part of it so that you don't have to do the whole piece of it?
Yes, exactly. And then all the other stuff, I just delay till what I do, and I'm not encouraging this because I know people value their weekends, but I take a chunk of the weekend and I do that so that I can show up on Monday and be my best self. Because if I have all this stuff that I have anxiety about not having had accomplished the week before, part of my personality, my Myers-Briggs is the J. So it's very hard for us to play when there's work to be done, which I have to learn how to figure out without introducing, if I have a drink, then I'm fine and I can shut that off, but I got to figure out a different way to go about that.
Introducing the alcohol.
Yes. Or usually if I have my mindset of I'm going to do that on Sunday afternoon from this period, because I'm a J, right? So it's all planned, even if you don't know the plan.
Right.
Then I can relax a little bit. So that's how I work through because one of the questions was a typical day. So my Mondays and Fridays, I try not to schedule much at all. And those can be my work days. Right. And I work from home those days. Okay. Most of the time. If I have to give somebody time, I'll take from that. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are like go. Like I have another business idea for that, so that's going to be fun. But I literally just either drive around all day or the people come to me and I'm just in meetings literally from 7 to 5, if not later. And I don't mind that because it's kind of like doing intervals. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are my sprint, and the other 4 days are my walk, if you will, when you think of doing intervals. And it works for me. It would not work for a lot of people.
I think there's actually, I would agree with you, though. Like, I have a higher stress if it's like a go day and then a stop day, and then a go day and then a stop day. It's just like, put all my go days together and then let me like catch up or whatever needs to happen outside of that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So it works for me. So those are a couple things that work for me, but.
So if you like tools, check out Sorted for your email.
Okay.
I don't know if you've used it before, but you can create buckets and it will actually like remind you of your emails. So like if there's emails that you want to delay, it will like kind of turn them off and then send them to you again on when you want them delayed. It'll create to-do lists through there. And I actually created my urgent, not urgent ones right into there. So I just move all my emails right in there, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll check it out.
But we have gone way over on time, which I love because I just love when I get lost in conversations. If people have questions for you or need to reach out to you, how can the listeners do that?
Yeah, so you can check us out at lightconsulting.co. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram too. And then you can email me, Sarah, SARAH, at lightconsulting, LIGHT, consulting.co.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here today, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions for Sarah, feel free to reach out to her. And thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Hannah.
You've been listening to the Flourish Mindset. Don't forget to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode.